Good morning to everyone. Today with us we have Anant Goenka, who is the Executive Director of the Indian Express Group. He is a brand management graduate of the Marshall School of Business at the University of Southern California and was awarded with Dean Scholarship for his master's in print journalism from the Annenberg School of Journalism, USC. Anand has steered the expansion of the Express digital business in tune with the group's enduring value of fairness, accuracy, and courage. We welcome you, sir.
Hello, good to be here.
Um, Sir, so starting on a broader note, what's your perception of the Indian media today? 2020 was a rather eventful year that saw the rise and fall of major media houses, more sensationalism than facts, and so on. So, what do you have to comment on that?
The state of media today is actually quite, it's actually very sad and, quite deplorable almost, I would say. And there are a few reasons I'm saying that. And, it's very easy to just come and sort of complain about the world and complain about the way things are. But there are a couple of things and we should kind of recognize that. First is, you know, the reality of our world, not of India, but of our world is that in each country, spin the globe, put your finger wherever it lands, and you will find that that country is much more, society is much more polarized today than it ever was, or at least in the recent past. And I think what's happening is that media all around the world, and much more so in India, I think is kind of now sort of a victim to this polarization in that they are also playing in this game of polarizing society. I think the media is kind of getting caught, is kind of getting caught to pick sides in this polarization. I think that's something which helps the media business if you pick a side. It helps the media business if you kind of own a community, sort of own a certain uh, sort of you own a psychographic segment of audience.
Mhm.
You own an ideology
Mhm.
that creates loyalty, and that's good for business. But I think that's fundamentally against, I think, a principle and a fundamental role of what media should do, which is, I think, to unify people, to unite people, to
Yes.
find commonalities rather than exploit differences.
Mhm.
I think what's happening now is, I think media's kind of doesn't really know how to. It's not found, I think, a very business friendly yet responsible way of being in this hyperpolarized world. And I think that's one of the reasons why you see all the kind of weird shit that we kind of see, especially on TV. I mean, TV's become such a joke. I don't know the last time I watched TV news. And honestly, I don't even, most of the people that I kind of interact with, who I can call friends, people I've gone to school with, people I've gone to college with, uh, a lot of, I mean, a lot of us just don't care anymore for what's on TV news.
Yep.
We don't. We're actually losing a lot of interest in that. In the issue of the evening. Which I'm saying a lot of us had. We had that certain sense of excitement. Maybe I'm from South Bombay. A lot of my friends, are just very disconnected with kind of news and what's happening. But we've always, I mean, there was some element of interest or some element of you know just wow factor in terms of watching the news on TV at 9 p.m. with the lead anchor. That's gone. It's
Yeah.
disappeared completely. And I think one of the reasons that is because I think television has gotten, as I said, stuck in this position where they have to kind of they're kind of trying to pick a side, and those who don't pick a side are finding that they aren't able to bring their audience with them. uh, so I think this is really why I think the media is in a what I defined as a deplorable state.
All right, sir. So the pandemic has obviously hit the print media very hard. How is the Indian Express defying odds? So, can you
So
please comment on that?
So look, I'll tell you the pandemic again. Like many, I think so many industries we're seeing around the world,
Mm-hmm.
not just in India, are haven't quite been able to figure out how to deal with the disruption of the pandemic. And the disruption of the pandemic has been obviously extremely profound,
Yes.
especially for newspapers, right? I mean, can you imagine a situation where, literally in a matter of 4 days,
Mm-hmm.
in fact, in a 1 day notice, nobody can leave their home, so nobody can actually give the paper to your house. So our whole business, which actually works on printing newspapers and distributing them, just stops. uh,
Yes.
and so it is an extremely scary and unusual and just, I mean, just, all bets are off kind of situation. No. So I think what happened, I think a big part of what happened is that there was a lot of realization. The WHO was really strongly sort of kept putting out very aggressively that, look, that viruses don't carry in newspapers and it's completely safe to read the newspaper. I think that awareness took some time, and the more educated the city, the more affluent the society, the more, the longer they took, funnily enough, to realize that newspapers are completely safe to get in your home and to read.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the people who were really addicted to the newspaper decided to iron the paper before reading it, or they decided to put it in a UV box and then read it, or decided to spray sanitize on the paper and then read it. A lot of people just kind of said, you know, we're just going to read it online. From our perspective, a couple of things have happened. One is that the reach of the Indian Express as a newspaper in that format has never been higher. We've we got a
Sure.
lot of
In
interest.
terms
We
of reach, are you
partnered.
talking about the physical newspaper, or are you
Yeah.
talking
So the
about?
physical newspaper, I'm saying the format of it. Now, the
Okay.
only thing I can say that's different in the format is there
Okay.
is a paper that goes to. So with except for Bombay, which hasn't come back to 100% of our circulation pre-COVID,
Mm-hmm.
every other city has. Delhi is about 85-90%. Every other city is back to 100% of what our circulation used to be. The
Okay.
problem in a city like, but my point is, what we did when the lockdown happened is we decided to give what we called it's called an e-paper or an e-replica.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically a scan of the newspaper, and we just kind of distributed it to several. We had several people who called us wanting to partner with us. People like, for instance, universities like the Ashoka University, um, several banks, the HDFC Bank, for instance, ICICI. I think there was the All Nippon Mutual Fund, FICCI. All these guys, kind of, we partnered with them to distribute the paper to their members or customers or whatever you call it,
Mm-hmm.
and their communities, their customers. Like, for instance, with HDFC Bank, for instance, the HDFC Bank customers were so grateful to HDFC for creating the service where the Indian Express would land up on an email to them, a scanned version of it. Um, so those partnerships were very fruitful, and now we are actually selling our e-paper behind. We're selling the e-paper as a product on digital platforms, and it's doing really well. It's doing extremely well. There are a lot of people who just really like that, format of, you know 16 to 24 pages, the news prioritized for you by an editor, somebody who sort of puts a hierarchy to all the news,
Mm-hmm.
somebody who kind of, the user experience of a newspaper. You're all IT guys, you'll know what user experience means. And the user experience of a physical paper, that has been the R&D in that user experience of that design has been happening now for almost 300 years.
Yeah.
So it's a solid, it's a great user experience, the newspaper, right? Like, there's a clear prioritization of stories. You're able to go from one to the other. You're able to find stories that you didn't know that you wanted to read, but you just kind of, it's next to the story that you do want to read, and you kind of end up reading that as well. So you just end up consuming a lot more. And I still believe the best way to equip yourself for the day ahead, if you're engaging with the world, if you're, a working professional, you're somebody looking for a job, you know the best way and the only sure shot way to be aware of everything that you need to be aware of, to be an active citizen in society, best way to do it is just read the paper in the morning. You just take the paper, flip the pages, read the articles that attract your attention. um, there is, honestly, to my mind, there is still no good substitute for that habit.
So very true, but there's a personal question that I really want to ask. Like, as we are moving into the age of digitalization, do you think that like my generation, I would say, would stop reading a physical newspaper and it's better for like the newspaper to be converted into like, let's say, a website or an app? Like,
Yeah, absolutely. And I thank you for asking. I didn't come to that. I meant to come to that. Again, is the noise bothering you?
no, no, sir, you're very clear.
Okay.
Very clear. Yeah.
Okay. Um, the no, look, you're absolutely right. And globally, we're seeing this habit of people not reading the paper and shifting to digital
Mhm.
formats. We have been investing in our digital platform for the last almost 10 years now. In fact, the Indian Express was the first news website in India, expressindia.com, I think back in 94 or 95. 93, I think. And so, I think we about 10 years ago, we refocused ourselves on digital. And, today we are one of the world's largest digital news groups. So you forget the newspaper, but as a digital news company, we're one of the world's largest. We're reaching 180 million unique users a month in 6 languages across the world. We so we have I think we've I really, to be honest, don't really care if the audience is consuming news on my newspaper or on my digital platform. I
Mhm.
just want my audience to consume news. And I have a real strong conviction that if you start consuming news, you will be able to differentiate as an audience between a good, credible source of news and just random, commoditized, undifferentiated news. And I believe that you will pick the Express and other important, independent journalistic outfits like the Express as your primary source for news once you start consuming and getting reacquainted and addicted really to knowing what's happening around you. And if you are an Express, so I think if you have that interest in the news, if you have that interest in being an engaged citizen, it doesn't, honestly, for me, if you don't like the paper and you want to read our content on digital platforms, we are platform agnostic.
All right, sir. So I'm like, it's a common, conception in almost everyone that fake news and incompetent journalism has, discredited Indian media to a very great extent. Like, as you said,
Yes.
the news channels, various other newspapers as well. So, like, are the media houses compelled to sell these sort of sensational and polarized content to remain in business? Like, what is?
I think yeah, that's a good question. I think, a big part of the Express's digital growth
Mhm.
has come from the fact that there is this sort of just terrible journalism that's been happening. This, falling on sensationalism, as you said, a lot of people putting out just unverified stuff as fact. And, more importantly, Vishesh, there's a lot of just the in fact in the digital universe there is so much of fake shit that people want to find credible sources of news. It's not good enough that, gone. I think gone or almost gone is that generation or that habit of people to say, um, I read this article on the internet. It said X. No, now nobody says I read it on the internet. Now people say, where did they read it on? Which site on the internet? Who? In fact, people are now getting into saying they read it on this site by this author, published at this time. So I think people, that's what they're getting more and more discerning in how they consume news.
Mhm.
And I think that is a very, I think that's important. And I think that is one of the opportunities there is for independent, credible, responsible news brands like the Express
Mhm.
to to kind of grow in this environment. So of course, there is this thing happening, and I think audiences are very smart. They don't take that long to realize when they are being manipulated.
Mhm.
And and just fake news is such a pandemic today. I mean, we saw with COVID that it was called an infodemic. There was so much information, nobody knew what was true. I think COVID really has forced people to realize, to realize the value of domain experts, has forced people to realize the value of authenticity, has forced people to question this ability of the internet to bring legitimacy to any anonymous content.
Mhm.
People are coming down and asking for the source. People are coming down and holding you accountable, as anyone. I mean, today, if I, as an individual, not as a media person, but as an individual, if I were to put a post on Twitter or on Facebook or on Instagram, and that post turned out to be wrong, or even if I send a WhatsApp message, people will call you out. They'll say, "Hey, don't spread shit if you don't know what if you don't know what you're talking about," or they'll call you out if you're wrong. So the accountability for what you're putting out has only increased, and that really benefits, I think, organizations like the Express, which is always invested in domain experts and just authentic original content.
Sir, if I could ask you a follow-up on that. You said that verification of the news is very important. The authenticity is very important. So can you please give us an insight into how that is done? Like how a fact is checked, that whether it is accurate or not, like what goes into that process?
So I think the most important thing to make sure that a fact is accurate is to lose the attempts to be first.
All right.
This race for breaking it first is, I think, what's cost a lot of it's caused a lot of heartburn, and it's caused a lot of losing of faith in our institution in the institution of media. So we're very proud when we're not so we're not running after being first. We want to be fast, of course, but we're not running after that. We are essentially, we are focused on getting it right, and the way we get it right is, there's no option but to invest in high quality reporters who have experience in that particular beat, in their speciality. You I find that a lot of media does this thing of just getting reporters and making them a jack of all. So you have one reporter who's covering crime and covering city politics and covering health and covering lifestyle. That is, in short term, it may look good on your P&L. It might make more money in the short run, but in the long run, you don't have a choice but to invest. I think if you want to be authentic and true and good to your cause, invest in the specialists. You need to have one person, one reporter, or not one reporter, but you need to have a reporter who who is trained, continuously exposed to, and is hungry to learn and grow in the field of, say, for instance, health.
Mhm.
And then that guy, is a lot more invested, therefore, and is just, is a lot better at putting out content, which is, therefore, it might not be the first, but then it'll have all these various checks. And
Yeah.
obviously, institutionally, everything that the Express puts out, there is there, it is edited, it is vetted, there's fact checking. It's all built into our system.
Mhm.
So any content that's put out, you can be sure that there are at least three, if not four, sets of eyes that have at least read it, gone through it, had some sense of vetting it, and putting it out. And that's what I think real journalistic institutions are about.
Yeah.
So we invest in that, and I think a lot of the startup digital outfits don't. They
Mhm.
are they're very obsessed with getting it first, and they're also very obsessed with sort of having an opinion to it. They kind of, they're more motivated by an ideology or by a slant than they are about getting it right. And I think that is what we are able to. I mean, that's our core competence.
All
We
right.
That's what we bring to the table.
So talking about this core competency itself, while I was researching about the Indian Express, I came to know that you did a 8 month long investigation about the Panama Papers.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So what factors propelled the group to take up this project? And, were you ever threatened by its consequences about, going into investigating such story?
Yeah, I think there are very few news companies anymore in India that
Hmm.
have a culture of investigating, especially corporate India. And one of the reasons that is because they're so reliant on advertising. We are so reliant on advertising from corporate India that we feel a little bit hesitant to, as an industry, you'll see a lot of players feel a little bit hesitant to, necessarily report and sort of, bring out things like Panama Papers. I think one of the big advantages of the Express and organizations like us, and there are very few like us left anymore, is that we don't have any other business. our business, our core business, our only business is the news business. We're not also, in the retail business. We're not also doing real estate. We are just in the news business. And it's a big realization that a big realization for us is that, being in the news business it's not a great business. You can't be doing this if my lifetime ambition was to own 3 Gulf Streams. I'm in the wrong industry. I'm in the wrong space. I can certainly make a lot more money if I kind of drop the express values and ethics. um, but then it's not good business for me to do that in the long run, because express will lose its own
Yeah.
sort of clout, and the institutional strength that it has, the institutional relationship that the express group has with its readers. We kind of lose that. And I think things like Panama Papers, and again, in just investing in these investigative reporters is is what Express is what differentiates us, and it's what we've been known for since the day my great grandfather founded the paper. We've been known for this, and we are only being true to our cause, and we're only being true to what we have promised our reader, that we will deliver, and we are being true to what's good business for us.
Hmm.
If the Express doesn't do Panama Papers, if the Express doesn't investigate and do fearless stuff, uh, it's going to hurt our readership. It's going to hurt the audience that we command today. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, so that's what motivates us to do it. So that's what motivated us to kind of invest in Panama, and we will keep doing it. We have been doing it. The second thing that's important is, I think on Panama especially, there was a lot of pressure. There was a lot of pressure. There were a lot of calls. If you read the series and you've done, if you haven't, you must. Um, the kind of names that were there in all these secret foreign bank accounts, and the fact that they were secret, and that the veil was lifted of the secrecy all over the world. We had partnered with 100 newspapers, 100 plus newspapers and TV channels, right from the Guardian to the BBC to various all over the world. And we kind of published people who we verified. We knew that this person was this bank account that was stashed in Panama, hiding a certain amount of money. We published that. We were not, it was just, it wasn't in our interest. We weren't able to do this and say, yaar, ye naam nahi dalenge. We have to publish all the names, and of the names, we had to publish those names that we thought we were more surprised to see. So I mean, it was a very tough journalistic project, but it was, I think, perfectly up Express's alley. It was hardcore, investigative, fearless stuff. It took over a year to do. There are several books and, I mean, movies made about that investigation, that whole series. I think Penguin brought out a book on Express's investigation in Panama specifically. Um, it was a very proud moment for me, and I think the whole newsroom. This is why we do the stuff we do. If I can just add one thing, which is, I don't know if you saw yesterday in Rajya Sabha, we have today is day 3 of a series that we're doing about just very poor, in fact, fraudulent data collection of COVID tests in Bihar.
I'm
And
not aware of that, sir. I'm very sorry.
the issue was brought up in Rajya Sabha yesterday by a member of the RJD.
Mhm.
The chair of the Rajya Sabha, who's controlling the chair who controls the House in the Rajya Sabha, is the Vice President Venkaiah Naidu.
Yeah.
Read it. He obviously he reads the paper. I'm quite sure he reads the paper every morning, and he's reacted to the RJD's question by saying it's an important issue, and he asked the health minister, who was in the House, to look into it. The health ministry immediately asked for a whole bunch of questions, and the chief minister of Bihar uh, has already, I think there are about 9 heads that have rolled in the administration. This kind of stuff, nobody's doing it anymore. Nobody is investing in actually auditing governments. Nobody's investing in holding elected people responsible. It's just much easier to do easy stuff and kind of make money. But the point is that somebody has to do this. I think this is a big part of what our readership and viewership expects from us, and so we do it. And Panama is one example, but there are so many more. Again, in Bihar, just after the lockdown happened, we did a story about how one of the things that kind of went, that kind of just the administration of Bihar missed, was the fact that in one entire part of rural Bihar, the midday meals, because of the lockdown, the midday meals were not being cooked. So we had a story that showed all these students in rural Bihar who actually, I mean, you probably know this, but if you go to a school in rural India, you go to a school and the school provides you obviously education, etc. But they also give you your that one midday meal.
Yeah.
Your lunch essentially comes from that school. Um so when the school shut down, they can't. I mean, somewhere something happened where Bihar didn't realize. So you had tens of thousands of students going hungry. We had a reporter who realized this after weeks of just reporting and just being on ground. He followed students into their playgrounds where they were eating frogs because they were so hungry, and we've got them saying this on camera. This is the kind of stuff which is very difficult to do unless you're patient with your reporter. You kind of let that guy be. You don't keep saying how many stories have you sent today. And stuff like this comes out, and it's a big part of what we do as news. And Panama is one example, but there are several such examples where I think courageous journalism that we stand for, journalism courage, is also journalism that has a very good societal impact, a very important societal impact.
So when we discuss media trials, assuming significant proportions, do you find the need to play for it? Like, do you find for it to play devil's advocate in order to bring the other side of the story?
Look, every story has two sides.
Mhm.
That cliche that we keep hearing about. It's our endeavor as journalists to find and put out both sides for our audiences, which is what I was coming to earlier, right? You find nowadays, because in this polarization, you'll find a lot of media that just kind of wants to talk about one side, which makes the other side, which only represents one side, alienating the other side, but then really having a loyalty and a strong audience base of the one side of people who kind of feel the same way.
Mhm.
We have, uh, I think, obviously, I believe it's an extremely irresponsible way of doing journalism and doing stuff. And our attempt is always to find as many sides as we possibly can. And we take a view. The view
Mhm.
we take will be in our opinion pages. It will be clearly said, this is the express view. We offer space in the paper and on our websites. We offer space to all sorts of opinions, as long as they're well argued and they're credible, in that it's not a maverick view of somebody who's doesn't have any stake in the situation, doesn't understand it. So we, good, educated, researched, thought through, well argued opinions we give space to. The space that we give, we're so happy if we give space
Mhm.
to voices and opinions which are disagreeing with ours. We think that's healthy for democracy. That's when people who read our products grow intellectually. That's when the worldview expands, and that's when they realize that to be an active, engaged citizen in a democracy, it's there's a lazy way of doing it, which is taking an opinion from one that you heard somewhere and exercising your franchise based on that. Or there's a way of saying, no, I want to know I want to know myself. I want to know everything about XYZ situation myself. And I I think we're on the right track as Express, in that we're investing in that time and effort in doing that. And I think that's important. And I think everything else is short term TRPs led editorial decisions.
So I was reading about an interview that someone took. You said that there is nothing which is more irresponsible than to play judge, jury, and executioner on primetime TV. What, according to you, is the motive behind certain journalists practicing it, and what extent do you think people are buying it? Like,
It's what I was saying earlier again, right? It's about just taking a position in this polarized society.
yeah.
For instance, that in the example that I think you're referring to, a particular man who
Hmm.
is no more committed suicide, And there are some people who want to believe that he was driven to it, and then there was a political angle to it, and somebody was involved. And I mean, there are clearly two instinctive views on that situation,
Mhm.
on that episode. It is our job to give you all the views of it, to give you all the sides of the stories, and to only tell you what is factual. It
Mhm.
is not our job to first find an opinion, to first decide how it benefits us to see where and how the story plays out, and then go and get all the voices and the opinions that actually support that argument.
Mhm.
You see, I think democracy is a very liberal idea. Democracy means that in the spectrum of liberal and conservative and conservatives in that spectrum, in the spectrum of left wing, right wing, democracy by definition is an idea which says everyone has a voice, everyone is responsible, everyone, it's all about, like, I don't know how to say it better than that. It's a liberal ideal.
Yeah.
And liberalism means that you're involved, and it means that the, that governance is actually strongly institutionalized.
Hmm.
The only way for government and governance to be institutionalized is for there to be processes. You have to keep strengthening the processes of government, of governance. You have to strengthen those processes. If you come in and play judge, jury, executioner in the
Hmm.
middle, and have just uh, kind of walk all over any process, and not talk about reforming process, improving processes, and finding faults in the process. You just trample on all processes and say this is what happened and this is what should happen. That is, I think, the journey to being a banana republic. We have to invest in strengthening our democratic institutions, and the way to do that really is to inform responsibly about all sides of the story.
So this will be my last follow-up. When you talk about informing people in a very responsible manner, what sometimes happens is like whenever a media house or anyone
It
is
gets
covering,
boring.
I'm so sorry, sir.
Were you going to say it gets boring if you
Uh,
respond, if
so
you inform in a responsible manner?
so not boring. I would say if I could take an example, like
Please.
what is happening right now in our country are the farmers' protests, right? Now,
Yes.
a lot of media houses, I don't know, like this is all rumors, but it is said that they have a lot of political influence wherein only one side of the story is covered and the other side is not.
Yes.
And so, how do you tackle such, if you're covering such a story, how will you tackle those influences and, tackle those big names is what I'm
See,
trying
you
to.
must. I mean, it's very interesting that if you see specifically in the farmers' protest, right, you'll
Mhm.
see a lot of very, very nuanced arguments that are being made in the Indian Express, for instance. Express doesn't say I'm for reform, or I mean I'm for these laws or I'm against these laws. I don't think. I mean, it's not that simple.
Yeah.
There is a thought process behind agricultural reform. Of course, it's important. It was due.
Mm.
It is overdue, and it should. There has to be stuff that happens. The way it was executed, how it's going to play out, we don't know. We have to see through.
Yeah.
There is a big sort of cohort of farmers who are impacted directly, who are feeling threatened. How are they being addressed? What are the political ramifications of the stand that the government has taken right now?
Mhm.
What are the economic ramifications of what we're saying? These are all various different factors behind one issue, and we should have a view depending on what we're talking about. But it can't be one. That's the thing about democracy. It's not convenient. You can't just be lazy and say I'm for reform or I'm against reform. I mean, it's you have to get into the details, because while, for instance, I'm extremely like I believe that our governance, and especially in the economy, needs a lot of reform and needs more privatization. I mean, I generally kind of that's where my personal view is.
Mm.
You will see a lot of opinions and a lot of sides in the paper which just don't agree with that approach and that ideology. Or you'll see a lot of people who kind of agree with that ideology but still find some things lacking in the way pro reform, in the way reforms are actually been done or executed. So I think just that investing the time and effort in finding these nuances is the way that we have to do it. And just by the way, I want to tell you that The Indian Express Group publishes four newspapers, one weekly magazine, several B2B magazines, and many more websites. Um, Financial Express and the Indian Express have so often been exactly opposite in their editorials and in their opinions.
Mhm.
You know, for instance, in this case, the Financial Express has very strongly supported the agricultural reforms.
Yeah.
Has very strongly has believed that it was, almost everything that was done was perfectly thought through, and I mean, not thought through, but everything was in the right direction. The Express's opinion can be a little bit more nuanced based on where you kind of stand. Nobody, by the way, is saying that we should be against reform. Nobody, at least I don't know of any position that any extra publication has taken which has been anti any reform at all, especially the farmer side. But I mean, that's the point, right? You need various opinions, you need different ideas, and you need to make the readers form their own judgments.
Right. Well, sir, that brings us to the end of the interview. Like, we thank you for taking time and shedding light on the Indian media houses and giving such valid information. Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you. Good luck to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.